Welcome to the Glitch Report, your daily marketing botcast. Brought to you by Leadpages. Here are our hosts, Kai and Luna.
All right, so we've got a stack of articles and reports here all about the future of digital interaction, you said. New rules, new tools, new ways people are behaving online. Sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really is fascinating how quickly things are changing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really caught my eye was this click to cancel rule from the FTC.
Oh, yeah.
On the surface, it seems pretty straightforward. Make it easy for people to unsubscribe, but I have to wonder, is there more to it than that?
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely more to it than just making cancellations simple. It's really a fundamental shift in power towards consumers. The FTC is basically saying, look, you can't just make it difficult for people to leave and call that a retention strategy.
Right.
You need to give them a genuine reason to stick around.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's less about the technicalities of clicking a button and more about the overall experience.
Exactly. You've got to be upfront about all the important details before you even start billing. Get explicit consent for things like negative option features and make sure that canceling is as easy as signing up.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with consumers being more informed and empowered than ever. Speaking of informed consumers, one thing I noticed is the FTC is getting rid of that rule where businesses had to send out annual reminders about negative option features.
Right.
That seems like a pretty big deal for marketers.
It is significant.
Yeah.
You know, it simplifies things on the surface, but it really puts the emphasis on providing genuine value. You shouldn't need to remind people every year to stay subscribed. If your product or service is truly valuable, they'll stick around.
It's almost like the FTC is saying to businesses, look, no more relying on people forgetting to cancel or not being able to figure it out. You need to earn those subscriptions.
Exactly. It all comes down to delivering on your promises.
Yeah.
Your value proposition needs to be crystal clear. Consumers should feel like they are actively choosing to remain subscribed because they're getting something out of it, not just because they forgot to cancel or didn't know how.
It all ties back to building strong, trust-based relationships, which seems to be a recurring theme here. With all these new regulations and the emphasis on transparency, what advice would you give businesses to make sure they're adapting effectively?
Well, the first step is to take a close look at your current practices. Make sure your subscription and cancellation processes are crystal clear, easy to understand, and readily accessible. Don't bury them in fine print or make them intentionally difficult to find. Embrace transparency.
So businesses definitely need to be paying attention to these changes and making sure they're adapting. Speaking of adapting, you mentioned some interesting updates to Bing Webmaster Tools. You know, I always like to hear what's new in the SEO world.
There are some big changes coming to Bing Webmaster Tools, some really big opportunities for anyone who's, really trying to make the most of search engine optimization.
Really? Like what?
Well, for one thing, they're extending the search performance data that's available from 6 months to 16 months.
16 months.
16 months of data.
Wow. That's a lot of data.
It's huge. It's a game changer for anyone tracking long-term trends, especially for businesses with seasonal products or services. Right. I mean, that's really where it's at.
That's amazing. I can only imagine what kind of insights you can get from that kind of data history. What's the advantage of having 16 months versus 6 months?
Well, just imagine being able to analyze your yearly patterns with that kind of granularity. You can really get a deep understanding of how your website performs over time. And it's not just about having more data. Bing is also changing how they present information to make it more actionable. They're replacing the Insights tool with something called recommendations.
Recommendations. So is that more about, less about just showing me the numbers and more about telling me what to do with them?
Exactly. You're going to see more granular performance metrics, site-specific optimization suggestions, and they're promising real-time data updates.
Yeah.
It's like having an SEO consultant in your back pocket.
Well, that sounds pretty amazing, assuming it works as well as they're suggesting.
Right.
Speaking of futuristic helpers, what's the deal with this AI assistant they're testing? Copilot, I think it's called?
Yeah, Copilot. It's still in limited testing, but people are really excited about it. Basically, you'll be able to have this chat interface where you can ask questions about your website's performance and get real-time guidance from an AI.
So like instead of trying to wade through endless help articles and forums, you could just be like, hey, Copilot, what's up with this?
Exactly.
That would be amazing if it works as well as they're suggesting.
It could really be a game changer. Think about it. You could potentially automate all sorts of routine SEO tasks, get on-demand optimization advice, and it's all integrated with other Microsoft services.
Okay, now you're just getting me really excited about the possibilities here. But while we're on the subject of humans, let's shift gears a bit because we've talked about the tools. But what about the people who are actually using these search engines? One of the articles you shared mentioned that consumer behavior is changing too.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting. You see, it's no longer enough to just focus on keywords.
Right.
The way people are searching is becoming much more natural, much more conversational.
So instead of trying to cram in all the keywords, it's more about having a natural conversation.
Right. And that's exactly how people are searching now.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about it. When you ask a friend for a restaurant recommendation, you don't say, best Italian restaurant downtown cheap.
Yeah, right.
You'd say something like, hey, any good Italian places downtown that won't break the bank?
Totally. It's way more natural. So how do search engines keep up with that?
Well, that's where AI comes in big time. As search engines are getting better at understanding how we naturally communicate, businesses need to adapt too. Remember that article about building a brand-specific LLM?
Yeah, that one sounded like something straight out of sci-fi. What exactly is a brand-specific LLM, and why is it so crucial in this whole natural language search world?
Okay, so imagine you have this AI ambassador for your brand.
Okay.
LLM stands for Large Language Model. And basically it's this super sophisticated AI that understands and generates human-like text. A brand-specific LLM would be trained on everything that makes your brand unique.
Interesting.
Your brand, voice, product information company values the whole shebang.
So it could actually communicate with customers like it's part of the brand.
Exactly. It could answer questions, generate content, even have conversations, all while sounding totally on brand. It's like having a whole team of super smart brand wives working around the clock to make sure everything you do online is consistent and clear.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty impressive, but also a little bit creepy if I'm being honest. It makes you think about the whole privacy issue. With all this AI and data being collected, what are your thoughts on that?
You're right to bring that up. It's definitely something to think about. As AI becomes more prevalent, online transparency and control over data are absolutely crucial. Businesses need to be upfront about how they're using AI, what data they're collecting, and give people real choices about how their information is used. No more hiding behind vague terms and conditions.
It always comes back to trust, huh?
It really does. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, especially online. And being transparent about how you're using these powerful technologies is the only way to build that trust.
Which actually reminds me of that Qualtrics report you shared about customer feedback declining. It seems like people are less willing to share their opinions publicly these days, especially on social media.
It's true. It's kind of a paradox when you think about it. We're more connected than ever, but people are becoming more selective about where they choose to share their feedback.
So instead of tweeting a complaint, they're more likely to just vent to their friends or leave a private review.
Exactly. People are turning towards those more private channels, whether it's word of mouth with friends and family or discrete online platforms.
That makes it tough for businesses though, right? How are they supposed to stay in tune with what their customers really think?
It takes a more proactive approach for sure. Businesses need to think beyond just monitoring social media. Things like focus groups, customer surveys, really personalized communication. These are all ways to open up those lines of communication and figure out what customers truly value.
So it's like everything's coming back to that personal connection, even with all this advanced technology.
Exactly. In a world saturated with information and AI-powered everything, those real human-to-human interactions are more valuable than ever.
It makes you wonder how we strike that balance. How do we harness all the efficiency and personalization of AI without losing that essential human element of connection and authenticity?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I don't think there's an easy answer. It's about constantly exploring and adapting as the digital world evolves.
Well said. That gives us all something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. It's been incredibly insightful. And to everyone listening, we hope this has given you some food for thought about the future of digital interaction and what it means for you. Until next time.